Good afternoon, 6th grade. It is Wednesday, May 6th. I hope you enjoyed that quiz. Today we're going to be learning about Brazil. We're going to be reading from pages 328 to 331 and doing Comp Check 18C, questions 1 through 3. Let's dive in. Brazil, giant of the South. Brazil, the 5th largest country in world area, covers almost half of the South American continent. Northern Brazil is dominated by the Amazon River and its tributaries or smaller rivers. Jungles cover much of this region. Farther south, the land rises to a range of fertile plateaus where more than half of the country's people live. Three rivers water the southern plateaus: the Paraguay, the Parana, and the Uruguay. Coffee plantations, cattle ranches, cotton fields, pine forests, and vineyards thrive in these highlands. Let's look at some historical events in Portugal. Portuguese colonists began to pour into Brazil shortly after explorer Pedro Álvares Cabral claimed the land for Portugal. The colonists soon discovered that sugarcane, tobacco, cotton, and rice thrived in the fertile soil of the Brazilian coast. At first, the Portuguese landowners forced the native Brazilian Indians to work on their plantations. Many of the Indian laborers died, however, either in revolts against their masters or from disease. The colonists replaced their Indian slaves with black slaves from Africa. Thousands of black slaves were sold to Brazilian plantation owners between the 1500s and the 1800s. In fact, more than 1/3 of the slaves brought from Africa to the New World were sold in Brazil. Most of the other 2/3 were sold in the West Indies and Central America. Members of Portugal's royal family ruled Brazil for 200 years until in 1822, Pedro, son of the King of Portugal, declared Brazil to be independent. Thus, Brazil gained its independence without bloodshed and became an empire. Pedro I ruled as emperor until 1831, when the Brazilians, dissatisfied with his rule, forced him to resign. His son, Pedro II, became emperor in the age of 15 in 1840. Pedro II proved to be a wise ruler and helped Brazil develop into a strong country. So much progress took place during his reign that the years 1840 to 1889 became known as the Age of Pedro. During those years, Brazil's first highways, railroads, and telegraph lines were built, and the economy, culture, and education flourished. Slavery became an important issue during the Age of Pedro. While many Brazilians called for the complete abolition of slavery, slave owners clung to their valuable workforce. Pedro II opposed slavery, but he realized the power of the landowners and planned to free the slaves gradually. First, he granted freedom to the children born to slaves. Later, he freed the elderly slaves. In time, he hoped to free them all, but the abolitionists continued to demand immediate abolition. Finally, in 1888, while Pedro II was away in Europe, his daughter, Princess Isabel, yielded to the pressure and declared all of the slaves in Brazil free. Though 700,000 slaves applauded her, the plantation owners revolted. Within a year, the royal family had been banished to Europe, though Pedro II is still honored as a national hero. Since 1889, Brazil has been ruled mostly by a succession of military dictatorships. Brazil has the distinction of being the only South American country that fought in World War I and World War II. During World War II, the Brazilian Navy helped keep important Atlantic sea lanes open for the Allied ships. Brazilians have remained a proud people and feel they have a greater role to play in national and world affairs. Now let's look at Brazil's economy. Brazil has tremendous natural resources, including farmlands. It is the largest producer of coffee in the world. While the United States is the largest single consumer, coffee comes from the coffee trees which grow on a mountainside coffee plantations called fazendas. Each berry growing on a coffee tree contains 2 beans. The berries are removed by machines, then roasted to bring out the rich coffee taste and aroma. Brazil also ranks as a leading producer of cocoa beans or seeds. The bean-sized seeds grow inside a pod that is 6 to 10 inches long. After the ripe pods are picked, the beans are removed, allowed to ferment, and then processed into chocolate, cocoa, or cocoa butter. Although most of the world's cocoa crop comes from West Africa, Central America and South America also produce significant amounts. In addition to coffee and cocoa, Brazil is a leading producer of bananas, sugarcane, citrus fruits, cattle, and sheep. Most of these crops and livestock are raised on sprawling plantations. Some of the plantations in Brazil are as large as the state of Oregon. They're huge. Brazil's natural resources also include forests, mineral deposits, and water power. It ranks among the leading producers of forest products. The country's mineral wealth includes quartz, graphite, iron ore, tin, petroleum, and many other valuable minerals. Most of the nation's electricity is produced by hydroelectric dams. The Itaipu Dam on the Parana River is one of the most powerful hydroelectric plants in the world, and there's a picture of it here on page 330 at the top. Now let's learn about Brazil's people. As the 5th largest country in the world in population, Brazil has nearly as many people as all other South American countries combined. It is the only country in the Western Hemisphere where Portuguese is spoken. There are nearly 10 times as many Portuguese-speaking people in Brazil as in the country of Portugal. Almost 90% of all Brazilians are Roman Catholics, making Brazil the largest Catholic nation in the world. Despite the huge industrial potential of the Amazon River basin, most Brazilians live along the coast where the first colonists settled. Only plantation owners and scattered Indian tribes live away from the cities. To encourage more people to move inland, the Brazilian government moved the capital from Rio de Janeiro to Brasília, but still most of the people remain near the coast. Rio, as Rio de Janeiro is often called, is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Its name means River of January. The explorer who discovered the bay on January 1st, 1502, gave it this name because he thought it was the mouth of a great river. Rio developed into a trading center because of its good harbor. Scenic Guanabara Bay is considered one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. A cable car carries tourists over the bay to the top of Sugarloaf Mountain, a rocky formation which rises from a peninsula on the harbor. Rio is one of South America's chief seaports as well as Brazil's cultural center. The city has 35 universities and 28 museums. Residents of Rio are called cariocas, an Indian word meaning white man's house. The largest city in South America and the 4th largest city in the world is Sao Paulo, Brazil. It was founded as an Indian settlement in 1554. Today, Sao Paulo is the industrial center of Latin America. Missionaries to Brazil often go to Sao Paulo first to study the Portuguese language. Many publishing companies are located there. They print books, Bibles, and Sunday school material in Portuguese. Located in the heart of the Amazon jungle near the junction of the Negro and Amazon rivers, Manaus is the center of trade and commerce for the Amazon basin. Ocean liners travel 1,000 miles up the Amazon to unload and pick up cargo at this busy port. Major exports include such forest products as rubber, lumber, and Brazil nuts. The capital of Brazil, Brasília, is well known for its striking architecture and orderly arrangement. The Brazilian government moved from Rio de Janeiro to Brasília in 1960 after 5 years of planning and construction. The officials chose an inland location for their capital in an effort to draw Brazilians away from the coastal cities to settle the country's wild interior. From the air, Brasília looks like a drawn bow and arrow. Residential districts form the bow. Government buildings form the tip of the arrow, while business, cultural centers, and recreational facilities make up the shaft. Because of the city's residents work for the government, the city economy relies heavily on government activities. Other city residents work for the construction industry, the second leading employer for various service industries. And that concludes our lesson today on Brazil. And we're going to continue on in Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay tomorrow. But for the rest of today, make sure you finish the first 3 questions on CompCheck 18C here on page 331. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.